I can review it again for those who haven't done it, or I know we have some people coming in. So, why have your clients bought from you before? Is such an important question, and it's already documented, right? There's already a reason why your clients have bought for you before, right? So, thinking about why have your clients bought from you before, who are they, right? And you'll start to see themes, right? Like, I'm attracting a lot of people who are never signed their first client. I'm attracting people that have tried to lose weight before, but they are still failing, right? You'll start to see themes and who those people are. Uh, Find word for word what your client said and get the intake forms in the applications and get that specific language. That specific language is so important. It's so important because what will happen is we will say, our clients need help with marketing, right? They need help with marketing, organic marketing. But in your intake forms, they're saying content and social media. So if you do a whole webinar on marketing and messaging, but they're over here being like, but I actually have a problem with content and social media, they're not going to be able to correlate. So that's why your language is so important when you're dealing with your ideal clients. I only like to look at language that has my ideal client's information, right? Where my ideal client actually said it. I only like to look at language like that. It's so important. And then what are your sales strengths, right? What are the easiest ways for you to sell? Is it your video? Is it copy? Is it your podcast? Thinking about it in that way, right? And then thinking about ways that you've done lead gen before and how you've gotten clients. Okay. So from your information, I want you all to like to kind of put together like a sales recipe, right? So I want you all to put together a whole list from your notes on how have people bought from me in the past. I want everyone to answer that question right now. Everyone write it out. How have people bought from me in the past? What have they bought? And then you're going to share it with your table. Why sell with a movement? People don't buy just coaching programs, right? They buy a mission that the coaching program will allow them to achieve. So people don't just buy coaching programs, they buy a mission that the coaching program allows them to achieve. And you need a group of people in order to scale. So all those people have to be connected to a bigger movement, right? If we're talking about getting 35 people in a room, y'all all have to be bought into the same message, right? And the same movement. How I like to think about it is MLK, right? In order for him to have the Million Man March, he had to get a million people on one page and to want one thing and to be connected to one greater thing, right? And so that's the point of having a movement, especially when you're scaling, is you need groups of people to buy your coaching program. So you need groups of people to be adapted and to be locked into your message and your movement, right? And movements provide a depth to your work, and you'll be more than just another coach on the internet, right? So like there's so many sales coaches. There's so many business coaches, right? But I never get, oh, how are you different from that person? How are you different from this, right? I never get that because I have such a powerful movement. What's my movement? Emancipation, right? I do it down to like my branding, down to the names of my programs, down to like why, I even think about like, you know, my definition of scaling and why scaling is important. Some people will say scaling is important because you want to make sure you have the most money in the world. Some people will say scaling is important because you want to help more people. I say scaling is important because staying small is racist. Right? So, like, we all have different definitions, and all these different business coaches have different definitions. But my definition is unique to me, and people buy into me specifically because they like my movement and my definition of things, as an example. Right? So, your movement will help you be unique and will help you stand out, and it'll help you have depth to your work. Sometimes I see on Instagram, people are just posting just to post and they're wondering why they're not getting any clients. And I'm like, there's no story behind it. There's no mission behind it. You're just telling us to post on Instagram 3 times a day and we're going to sign clients. There's no greater emotion or mission connected to it. right? Or it's like, or you're just telling us to lose weight just to lose weight. Or you're telling us to get a promotion just to get a promotion. There's no reason why. That movement is that why, right? That movement is that why. So it provides some depth to your work, right? It provides some depth. Your movement is typically one word. It could be a song lyric, it could be a phrase, but it's typically one word. And it's typically a feeling or a characteristic that you will feel once you accomplish a result, right? So I'm like, okay, once I quit my job, I'm going to feel emancipated. Once I hit $1 million, I'm going to feel emancipated. Once I lose 20 pounds, I'm going to feel X. Once I, master my style, I'm going to feel blank. Right? Once they accomplish a result, how are they going to feel? And then that's often the movement, right? And it may not be like a feeling. I mean, it may not be a feeling. It also may be something else. Like I had a client, she was a career coach, but her movement was family, right? Like once I have the promotion, I get the working schedule that I want, I'll be able to spend more time with my family. Right? So it doesn't always have to be a feeling. It could be, like I said, a characteristic as well. Could be a characteristic as well. My movement, emancipation. I think I have some more examples. Yes, here's some examples. Client who sells email and social media, Kirsten, peace, right? She's all about peace. She's all about being social media optional, having a team and systems. Her movement is peace. A client who is helping wellness practitioners become well paid with client referrals, voice, making sure that the wellness industry has a voice, right? Client who helps Latinas accomplish life goals that they've delayed for years, courage, right? The movement is all about courage. And so something that has depth to it, that's connecting it other than just the program result. The program result. So you want to be thinking about your movement. How you will use your movement. It will be your guiding stars for all of your decision making in your business and in your offers, right? It'll impact your business model, it'll be in your marketing, and it'll be in your content, but you're not going to sell it, right? I never say buy emancipation, right? I don't sell it necessarily, but it's just my mission. And it's more of like a felt sense and a feeling. Again, like we've seen those business coaches just talk about marketing and talk about content just to do it. But when you connect it to a movement, it feels completely differently, and you're able to buy into something deeper and stronger, right? I think this is my last slide. Your movement can change, right? Mine first was ambition, and then it changed to emancipation. So if you're thinking about changing movements, that's okay too. That's all right. How to decide your movement, right? How do you want people to feel after accomplishing your program result? So I want you all to take I'm going to put a minute. I just want you all to brainstorm some words. And how I like to come up with my movement too is I like to brainstorm some words, and then I love, love, love to go to the thesaurus. Go to a thesaurus, plug in, some words and see what pops up. And it will be like a visceral reaction. You'll go like that's how it'll feel. It's like, oh my God, that's it. Right? Like it will be a little dramatic. But that's kind of how I decide the movement. So I like to think of a word and then I throw it into the thesaurus and like to see what else comes up. So why don't you all spend a minute thinking about your movement? So the purpose of your podcast and YouTube is to create so much urgency to buy because they built a relationship with you and they know how you can solve their problem. Right? So many people, they're posting episodes on their podcast just to post, right, without really a purpose. But I want to create urgency in my podcast and on my YouTube channel. I want someone to be like, oh, this is exactly what I've been looking for. She solves my problem so specifically. Oh my gosh, I have to work with her. That's how I'm thinking about my podcast. I'm not just creating just to create. I'm not just putting stuff up there just to put up stuff. I don't put every single idea on my podcast either. Right? The podcast is to serve as a sort of funnel, right? For me to be creating a relationship with the person and to create so much urgency where they have to work with me, right? So that's the purpose of the podcast and YouTube. Podcasts are great for relationship building, lead generation, and having your own platform to share your concepts. Your clients are a large pool of your audience on the podcast. That's important to know, right? So, like, if I'm having, if a lot of my clients are struggling with something, I will then create a podcast for them and they'll be like, that episode is huge, right? That was so important for me. So a lot of the people in your audience are going to be listening to your podcast, but a lot of them are going to be clients. So that's also great for re-signing, right? And to really continue being like, I'm going to continue helping you solve this problem. YouTube is different. YouTube is mainly for lead generation with a little bit of relationship building, but my clients necessarily are not. Are y'all looking at my YouTube channel? Some of y'all are, right? Some, right? But like not really. Look, Jasmine helps me create and she doesn't even look at it, right? Like right, all the work we do on it. And so YouTube is mainly for lead generation for cold traffic. So podcasting, you do obviously get new people, but it's great for your current audience and your current community. Whereas YouTube is for colder traffic, right? YouTube content, you want to be more beginner, straightforward, and have cold lead content. So I'm not talking about something very, very advanced on YouTube, right? I'm keeping it very simple, very beginner. But on podcasts, I might do something a little bit more advanced. Does that make sense? Yes? Yes. Give me 1 second, Brooke. Here's some ideas. And then this is it, Kimmy. I told you it wasn't going to be a lot. This is it. Behind the scenes for both podcasts and YouTube, right? I think that's great content. I was going to actually use Jasmine as an example. I really, really like her podcast. She talked about on her podcast her own style transformation, right? And and how that has to do with branding. I love listening to those episodes. Whenever I do launch recaps, right? People eat up those episodes. I'm thinking about if you're like a weight loss coach and you talk about like how you navigated eating while on a trip to France, right? Someone would love to listen in on that. I'm having to start listening to more like funnel and evergreen people. And outside of evergreen funnel content, this person, she talked about how she's expanding her real estate portfolio, right? So it necessarily doesn't have to always relate to like a concept or a framework, but any behind the scenes content that shows the result of your offers, I think is really important. Interviews of clients, obviously. People love to listen to clients. And making the interviews fun, right? Making the interviews fun. Don't be like, so what did you learn in the program? I learned this. Oh, wow. Like, actually making it fun, diving in more to that person's story, right? Really like connecting to that story. Like I will actually spend more time on someone's story on a podcast interview than like, well, what did you learn and what framework was the best? I will spend time with the story because I want someone listening being like, oh my God, that's me. That's just like me, right? I had that same problem. Dielle helps with that problem. I have that same problem, right? So I spend a lot of time being like, you're a mom, right? Or you had a small audience, right? Or this is your first time launching, right? Or this is your 20th time launching. Wow, I'm all about that person's story, right? But the interview. Vulnerable moments, right? So sharing moments where we have failed, right? Or sharing hard lessons. I feel like I did this well on my $1 million podcast at the end of last year, where I shared all of my failures. I shared how we didn't hit our launch goals. I shared how I had to fire my project manager. I had to share all my dirty laundry. That just helps with connection, right? And letting people know that you're human and you struggle with the things that they struggle with as well. Concepts and philosophies that overcome objections. That's very, very important. So, a podcast that I did that went over very well was called Fake Successful Launching. Did anyone of y'all listen to that episode, right? I positioned it that way because I was thinking about the objection of what if someone believes that they are successful at launching, but they really aren't? And I want them to join Six Figure Liberation. So I was like, how can I create a concept to let them know they're actually not as good as they think they are? right? So fakes, that's how I came up with fake successful launching. And so you want to create a concept or a philosophy, yes, but it has to overcome an objection. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So a lot of y'all, again, y'all be putting belief up there, and it's like, that's not overcoming an objection. So think about your client objections and how can you create a concept to overcome that objection, right? That one's a little more conceptual. Are y'all following? Y'all are following? Okay. Coaching call excerpts, right? I'll get to you in a second. No problem. Coaching call excerpts. This is where you all can pull out some of your coaching calls and put them on the podcast. Just be careful to make sure that your clients know that you're doing that. So I have actually said, hey, I call it a marketing call. Hey, I'm doing a marketing call. I'm going to use this either for Instagram Reels or my podcast, like just letting everybody know you don't have to go on. It's typically a bonus outside of my typical call cadence. It's a bonus, but it's really fun for people to see and hear me coach. Those have converted for me really, really well. You can also have people reach out. Like you could say, hey, I want to record a coaching podcast with just one person and have people reach out, and then you can coach them on that podcast as well. So that's converted well for people too. And then any sort of series, right? Any series that you want to do. Gina is the queen of series. If you look at her podcast when she's launching, it's all series based, right? So any series, which is just a theme, right? Are you talking about one particular theme for 2 episodes, 4 episodes, 6 weeks, right? Any themes and series go well. My favorite series that one of my coaches, Stacey Bayman, does, she actually does she did an impossibility, possibility, and inevitability series. I listened to that series to this day. She did it back in 2019. I love it. Okay, I'm good on time. You'll hear me talk about this a lot. Actually, let me teach and then I'll do my diagram. Okay. So I just want to prepare everybody's brain. This is one of the most challenging concepts for people to understand, right? So just, if you don't get it the first time, it's okay. Just sit with me and we'll peel it back like an onion, right? We'll peel it back like an onion. Selling a relationship. So let me back up. There's a difference between when you sell and there's a difference when you coach. Let me start there. There's a difference from how you sell, and there's a difference when you coach, right? The client is also in a different space mentally. When you're selling to them, they're in one brain, and when you're coaching them, they're in a completely different other one, right? So I really want you all to be thinking about that. The selling relationship is different from the coaching relationship. We'll unpack that. Selling relationship, I want you all to think about the selling relationship as the house, and the coaching relationship is the hammer, right? So I want you to think about a house, how it's already done. It's already created. That's the transformation, right? It's already done. It's already created. And people might have questions about the house. They might be like, how many square footage is it? What's the neighborhood look like? Does it include this? Does it include that? The selling relationship will include the house, right? It'll be everything about the house. Versus the coaching relationship is where you're like, I'm not talking about the house. I'm just going to give you a hammer. Right? And then the hammer is what actually like builds the house. Does that make sense? The selling relationship is like the finished product, and people will have objections and questions to the finished product, but the coaching relationship is giving them the hammer and the saw and the wood and telling them to make the house by themselves. Does that make sense? Right? Okay. So the difference between how you sell and how you coach is because your clients' brains are different when they're being sold to versus when they're being coached. Like I said, their brains are literally different. And so selling is the clients want to be told the dream and the transformation of your coaching versus coaching wants to be told all of the tools and the micro steps of getting that result. Right? So clients want to be told the dream and the transformation versus coaching, they want to be told all of the micro steps, right? So like when you all were enrolling into Six-Figure Liberation, you all were asking me these questions here, right? Y'all were asking me like, what's the live event like? Do you cover this? What is your philosophy on this? This is my problem. How can you help me? Right? That was how you all were asking me about six-figure liberation. But inside of the container, y'all have been asking me all of these questions. Hey, I have one-on-one coaching, but should I make it like this? Hey, my price is like this, and should I do it that? You got way more into the weeds in the coaching relationship. Right? So I even want you all to think about like how you all have interacted here, right? Selling a relationship. I think I said this already. Okay, here's an example. Selling a relationship. Have a six-figure launch. Coaching relationship. You need a good offer with Power 75. And then you need a pre-launch strategy. Then you need to write all your emails. And then you need to do a belief plan. And then you need to have then you can have a six-figure launch. Do you see the difference? Your selling relationship will be shorter. Right? It will be so much shorter. Brig is like writing. It'll be so much shorter versus the coaching relationship is where you'll break down each individual step and make sure they fully understand the process and all of those things. Right? So making sure that you're in the selling relationship and you're not in the coaching relationship. So selling relationship appeals to their caveman brain. When they're forking over their money, all of their safety and their caveman mechanisms are coming up. There's no higher level thinking involved. They can't understand your fancy coaching tools. They can't understand the model, right? That thoughts create their results in the selling relationship, right? They're like, I'm about to part from money. Is this a good idea, right? That's the only thing that they are thinking about, right? Jasmine, do you have a question? Okay, wait till I'm done, right? Versus the coaching relationship appeals to their higher level thinking because you have the space. We got 4 days. They have the whole coaching call. They have a whole 6 months with you. You can allow for their higher level thinking because there's space, right? But their caveman brain is like money leave, good, bad, right? Money left pocket, scared, right? Money left pocket, will this work? That's all they're thinking, right? And y'all over here talking about models, right? They don't understand that. What? She be the main one. It's your thoughts. That's why your team is bad. I'm like, you might as well. You might as well. Right? Okay. So here's some coaching relationship content, and I pulled this from y'all's Instagrams, okay? You don't need to lose weight to feel better, but you're a weight loss coach. Money doesn't solve all your problems, but you're a money coach. You need to work on your beliefs instead of change your life, but you're a life coach. Y'all are all looking at the screen, right? Like, are you literally you're a money coach. Like, think about it. You're a money coach and you're telling them that money doesn't solve their problem. Does that make any sense? So you all have met Keena now. Keena is another really good friend. We talk all the time on the phone, and she says very smart things like that all the time. Well, Keena, is your podcast converting? Right? I'm the main one. Like, Keena will tell me something on the phone. I'm like, Keena, do an episode on that. She's like, and I'm like, oh my God. Right? And then I see something else. I'm like, why are we talking about beliefs and money on this podcast? You want to be selling stuff that actually makes sense. Your niche should be the answer to their problem. Your niche should be the answer to their problems. Right? Imagine if I told you all, you don't need clients. You don't need sales. Imagine if I said that. Y'all wouldn't be here. Right? But that's what y'all do all the time. You don't need to lose weight. You're saying that out of context. I'm not listening to her. And so, like, you all have to make sure that you're actually, like, selling what you're selling. Like, you have to be selling your niche. Okay, hold on. Everyone, hold on. I'm not done yet. Okay, but I just really want you all to be thinking about that. Where are you all saying, if you're a career coach, you don't need a new job? People do that all the time, right? And it's because like the industry has swung so mindset where we really can change our results with our thoughts, right? But do you want clients is what you have to think about too, right? And it's like that will happen, that thought mindset transformation will happen in the coaching relationship. They don't understand that in the selling relationship, right? And I even want to think about Brooke Castillo, who's the most mindset person ever. If you actually listen to her, she rarely talks about the model, right? She rarely says, because your thoughts are creating your feelings and your feelings are creating your actions. Of course, she mentions her tools, right? But it doesn't lead, right? She's still talking about, you want to lose weight, you got to work on a protocol, and you will have thoughts about the protocol, but you have to have a protocol, right? You're going to have to work on your urges. We're going to have to coach you on your urges. The reason why you're over drinking is because you have urges. She's still actually naming real life situations and real life things that happen in everyday situations. Does that make sense? Right? Another way, I'm going to keep saying this in lots of different ways. Another way I like to think about this is, I want you to envision your clients through a window and like, what are they actually doing? Right? So like if you're weight loss, they walked over and they opened their phone and they were scrolling DoorDash and they're like, okay, should I DoorDash? Should I cook? They choose a DoorDash. They feel shame, but they keep on going. So then you should make a podcast on what happens when you want to order out to eat based off of what you saw with the client. Does that make sense? Right? So you shouldn't be talking about beliefs. You should be talking about when you got DoorDash on your phone. Right? If you're an anxiety coach, right? And it's like, you know, imagine seeing your client and being like, okay, maybe this was me. They were tossing and turning, couldn't sleep all night because they were so anxious about speaking in front of a crowd, right? So you necessarily wouldn't talk about mind-body techniques. You would talk about what happens when you have to public speak. Do you see the difference? Right? Another way that I like to say this is you want to talk about circumstances, not thoughts. So what are your clients' circumstances? If you were to give them a 24/7 schedule, and again, if you were to look with them with your eyes, what would they be doing in their day? What would they be doing in their day? That's how you have to perceive it, and that's how you have to think about it. Okay, I'm going to keep going. The selling relationship, it will be simpler, and it'll be selling them on the thing that they want more than anything, versus the coaching relationship is getting into all the tools and all the skills that they need to get the result. Right? You might be wondering, what about ethics? Shouldn't I be selling them what they're going to pay for? They're going to pay for mindset. Shouldn't I be talking about, mindset? And the answer is yes. Selling relationship will be 75%. You can tell I like 75%. Selling relationship will be 75% of your sales content. 25% will be those tools, right? So you will mention the tools. You will say, we teach mindset here, right? You will mention that, but 75% should be in the selling relationship.